The Great British Menu is a middle of the road job, and you could handle it because you're weird.
Yeah.
But you could also communicate.
I can communicate. And I, you know, the thing is, I am really interested in all sorts of people. So I don't sort of think, oh, you know, I don't really have that many value judgments on people unless I think they're really stupid, and then I'm not very good. Not very good, and I don't mean ignorant by that. I mean actually stupid. I can't deal. Terrible. I'm terrible. It's embarrassing. I'm so impatient. I get like, oh my god, I've got to leave. So for me, something like Great British Menu is sort of a middle of the road job, but actually, it's the same thing in that the chefs are bringing you something that they've put all their heart into, and they've given it everything they've got, and they're artists to me. They're creative, artistic people, and asking you to evaluate their baby, you know, the thing that means the most to them. And I know what it's like to bring people the thing that means the most to you. And so I really respect them, and I really respect what it is we're doing. I take it very seriously, and I don't, you know, none of the value judgments that I put on it are throwaway or contrived, because I just don't think that's fair. When somebody's put that much work and heart and their truth into it, then you have to give them every chance that they have, you know.
But how do you view, in terms of the development, the isolated black kid in Bury St Edmunds having those kind of troubles, and then 30 odd years later you can get that? I mean, you've talked about it being tokenistic, etc., and dealt with that really well, but that is interesting that has happened. And how have you viewed those changes, Steve?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm 55 now, so the last thing I expected at this point in my life was to suddenly get success in this particular area, or in any particular area actually, or to have a sort of new path opening up in front of me. You know, I've got a restaurant now, I've got these kind of quite mainstream jobs, like you're talking about Saturday Kitchen and Great British Menu, and I think that it's all the experience of everything that I've done all kind of coming to fruition. And the reason I can do it, the reason I'm good at it, is because of the amount of very different things I've done with all sorts of different people. And it's helped me to understand that nobody's better than anybody else or more interesting than anybody else. And to work within, you know, the structure of media that we're in now, I think it really pays to have had such a varied life experience. It's kind of funny because when I was younger, what they kind of wanted more were like sort of stage school kids, and now they realize that it's great being a stage school kid, but you've got nothing to say because you haven't done any life stuff. So now they want people like me who've actually got life stuff, who can then channel, who are then able to be articulate and channel that into kind of what they need. In some ways you kind of feel like you're doing their job for them sometimes, a little bit.
What do you mean?
Well, because I'll do stuff and I go, you can't do that. It's really shit. Okay, it's really, really shit. And they go, really? Why? And I'm like, because you're going to offend half of the audience for a start, and because they try to sometimes, not really on Saturday Kitchen and Great British Menu so much, because Saturday Kitchen is live and that's really seat of the pants, and they just kind of let you get on with it because they've got, you know, it's like a live gig. And Great British Menu is different because it's quite structured. But there are other gigs that I do that I'm not going to name where they go, you know, it can just veer a little bit into like slight bit too much tokenism and a little bit sort of, I'm like, you know, so there's a certain chef on TV who gets a little bit like handy, and get like, mate, you've got to be really careful. And there is a responsibility when you're one of the few people of colour in a recognisable, consistent role on screen, and I can't believe it's still like that, but it actually really bloody is. There is a responsibility that I'm loath to carry, that you have to, you know, like if I see a young black girl, a young black boy's watching on TV, I want them to be able to see something that's a great, exciting role model thing. You know what I mean? You cannot be what you do not see, all of that stuff. I want them to see you can do anything you want and be who you want and explore yourself as a fully rounded human being. So I just think you've got to be very careful about the choices that you make, right? And how you allow yourself to be portrayed. It's it's important. because that stuff rolls out across the country, and there's loads of little boys and girls up and down the country, black, white, brown, yellow, everything in between, going, okay. I never know what they're talking about when they say intimidating. I find it really... Sometimes it actually hurts my feelings, because I feel like I'm quite a warm, friendly individual, and then people go, oh, it's really scared. I'm like, what? Oh, what? What are you scared of? I find it really odd, do you know what I mean? Because it's so at odds with how I feel inside. I don't feel like... But I also know that I can give short shrift to idiotic situations and people that I think are being, you know, bigoted or stupid or in that kind of way. So I suppose when I need it, I use it to my advantage. But the rest of the time, I don't really understand it when people say that to me. So what I try to do, again, is I just come back to being honest. So if I'm being honest about what I'm trying to achieve and where I want to go and how I want to do it, then I think that in itself is engaging for an audience or for other people. It seems to be, and I think maybe it's just to do with not being contrived. So much on TV and in the media is really contrived, and the more that happens, the more someone like me stands out, because I'm just not from that world or that generation. You know, the more Towies there are, or whatever the other weird program is when they're all naked, what is it called, Love Island, and all of that stuff, the more someone like me is going to be a relief for someone like you or someone like you, because you're like, oh my god, she's actually read a book, she can string a sentence together or whatever. And more that's quite rare,
and also you don't have to let that be explicitly known. It's just in your it's in your manner, it's in your behaviour. It's
not about beating people over the head with it or anything, but it's just like being a kind of across so many different parts of our culture. But I think that is, again, it's like a byproduct of growing up in the punk era, in that we educated ourselves about everything and anything, and there weren't any divisions. So for me, the divisions that people put in place now, even musically, oh, this is a club where they only play house music or whatever, they only play reggae here, or they'll only play records, and it's like, why are you so boring? Why are you so dry? Why is everybody so dry? Is the cry, my sort of the wail of me that, you know, most of the time I just don't understand why people restrict themselves so much, you know, like in a modern world. I expected it to be so the opposite by the time we got here. I thought people would just be so even more like wow and coming together across all sorts of barriers, and it seems to be going the other way.
But in a way the Big and Panic stood out as being a little emblem of something that should have been. 30 odd years later, what you do now is still an emblem of what should be. Yeah. So it's the same thing, really.
Yeah,
isn't it?
and you know, in like Sly and people, you know what I mean? It's like you kind of we thought we were stepping towards the world that we were going to get, and actually we were forging something that was quite precious, that seems to really be sort of almost hanging there in the sky on its own in a sort of bubble, you know. But I do try really hard to pass that down to young people that I work with. You know, we have people come here, and I did some mentoring the other day at the Westminster Culinary College, and you know, I try to get young people to connect what they want in their heart, what makes them happy, with the job choices they're making or the career choices they're making. Because to me, that's just hugely important, so that you have a non-miserable life. It's like you don't have to do things that make you feel shit. You are allowed to be happy. You are allowed to do things that stimulate you and uplift you and actually speak for yourself in that kind of way, you know. But I think it's sometimes I feel like a bit of a lonely voice. Right, yeah.
I was interested in Dish Up that you did with Nena, because in a way that's the like missing link between Big and Panic and what you're doing now, isn't it?
The show that we did.
The TV show.
The TV show we did.
Which was amazing, and again a little emblem of something that should be, and then
so much fun.
Doesn't really go anywhere in a way.
Yeah. Well, we lost our commissioner, and then the new commissioner that came in said, well, the thing is, I've never been to a dinner party that looks like that. And I was like, I can't help it if you're dry. I'm sorry for you, do you know what I mean? It was like, well, you know, what are you going to say to that? It's like this guy from Shepherd's Bush who hangs out with 6 other weird dudes like him, and I don't know what they do, but they do what they do. So we never got another commission, but doing those 6 shows was the best fun. We had the most incredible time because it was really like celebrating our friendship and celebrating our family and celebrating the way that we love each other. And to have that and have had to get to do that was a really beautiful thing. And it was really, so we're talking about doing something else together now, actually.
And it leads you to that question, which I'm sure you've been asked about 4,000 times, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
It's all right.
Is the relationship between food and music? Because you and Nena answer it the best, but it is interesting.
It's interesting, and to me, they're inextricably linked. Even when we go back to talking about my dad, and that the best family times, I remember playing Sam Cooke, roasting a chicken, learning to make cauliflower cheese, you know, Al Green, James Brown, Sam Cooke, Patsy Cline, all of these things would be happening whilst happiness was happening. So while you were cooking, you know, whenever I cook, I've got like somebody asked me to do a playlist, and I sent them this 700 song playlist because I was like, I can't break it down, just have the whole thing. And they were like, oh my God. But it's like, that's what I, you know, it's, for me, music is the food of love. And without music, the food doesn't happen. Without food, the music doesn't happen. You know what I mean? The two things are inextricably linked for me because it's about a source of, it's about laying the groundwork for your happy place. And for me, I need both of those things to be happy. And they mean family to me. Music is family, food is family. And then in the middle of that is love and community and, you know, all the things that I hold really dear and precious, and music and food are always at sort of rocking underneath all of that the whole time. Just it's the cradle that we carry everything else in.
And what about rhythm? Is there rhythm in both?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, so we were talking about cooking the other day, and so I've been trying to hire a new head chef, and you can talk about it all you like, but being able to cook with somebody, it's like dancing with somebody. You know, some people you get on really, really well, you try and dance with them, you're like, oh, oops, do you know what I mean? Cooking with somebody is the same. You can sit, you know, talking about cooking is like dancing about architecture, that thing. So you have to get in there and just do it and see if it works or not, kind of thing. And when you can cook with somebody, like when me and Nana were in the kitchen, and we cooked together last carnival, and it was our first totally sober carnival, which was very interesting. Never done that before. And it was great fun, and we cooked up a storm. We hadn't cooked for ages. We had the barbecue out, and there was this massive table with all these beautiful things on it. And she had started some stuff, and then I came in with some other things that I'd started here, and then we put it all together, and then we sort of finished it together, and everything came together. And everybody was like, "How did you know what the other one was going to do?" I was like, "We didn't," but it's just, you know, it's like an echo. You kind of intuitively understand where you're going to go with something, you know. And for me, it saves my life again and again. And again, that thing, you know, and for us, when we haven't seen each other for ages, it's like our shorthand, it's our way back to each other without having to kind of, so how have you been? And all of that stuff. It doesn't matter. You just get in there and you're immediately immersed in each other's lives, and you can, you know, you're just there. You're back to where you need to be really, really quickly.
When Nena was successful, how was that for you? Did you feel...
Amazing.
Yeah.
No, for her, it was quite difficult, I think, because she was isolated quite a lot. So she would have to go off on her own quite a lot. And it was hard for me and her to be apart like that, actually. It was a kind of a weird thing because it was a difficult time for both of us. And, you know, Sean had died and lots of other things were going on. So it was a weird time for us to be apart a lot. And we were both in quite a lot of pain. Her and my brother were really, really, really close as well. So, but in terms of watching her as an artist, you couldn't be prouder. It's my sister, do you know what I mean? And she's incredible. And she's still incredible. She did that Six Music Festival thing the other day. And when I watched, I got tears in my eyes because she was just there. And I was like, she's just the queen of that shit. She's the queen of cojones, you know. She just stood there. She looked beautiful, and it just kind of falls out of her. And I still find her inspiring. You know, 600 years later, I still look at her and go, wow, you're fucking amazing. You know, and I couldn't be prouder of her and happier. Yeah. And she's just done a new record, and she's really enjoying it again. You know, I think it goes up and down with everything. And
one other thing I wanted to mention, that through all this, you kind of gave birth to a sort of oblique national treasure.
Yeah, I know.
So how did that
I
feel?
don't know. Well, for a start, I can't believe I've got a 34-year-old child. I'm like, where did you come from? Makita's amazing. Again, I'm just so proud of her, you know, because she was 16 when she was doing Pop World. She was a child, and that show was groundbreaking. Her and Simon Amstell created something that they're still now. They have boy and girl desperately trying to be like Simon and Makita all the time, and nobody can quite do it, you know. So I'm so incredibly proud of her, and she's been through her ups and downs. She went bankrupt, she's gone through all this stuff, and she's pulled herself back up. She's just doing a new music show with the BBC that is brilliant for her and Grimmy, that she has written. So she's executive producer, writer and presenter on it, and I'm like, yes, go kid. You know, she's like creating the work for herself and doing the things that she wants to do, which you kind of have to do.
And she starts at about the same age as you as well, and is immediately original.
Yeah,
as well.
Immediately original. I mean, and you know, the apple didn't fall far from the tree, and I'm really proud of that she's got the same drive as me, and the same, she throws herself into things with the same gusto and the same heart, and that's lovely to see. All our kids are like that, actually. Nana's girls are like that. Mabel, Nana's youngest, is massive pop star now. She's my goddaughter. Tyson is doing all this brilliant stuff and working with Makita and with Nana. Naima, Nana's eldest, has taught herself piano and has just started doing kind of conceptual art gigs and stuff, and I'm just like, these are our kids, man. They're incredible, you know. They really are. Like I'm in awe of them. They kind of, if I was a young guy, I don't know how I would deal with any of them, because they're quite, you know, they're very forceful, they're really passionate, they're incredibly beautiful. And you see them talking to guys, and the guys are a little bit like, woo, like little bit scared, I think.
That's what I was trying to say about seeing Rig, Rig and Panic.
Yeah.
As a young, you know, man, 20 years old, where do I put this? You know? I think the first time I ever spoke to a slit, I started eating my glass. I wasn't sure what to do, and I decided maybe that will impress them. You know?
Oh yeah, did it?
No,
how did that work out for you?
They removed me very quickly.
I love egalitarian luxury. So for me, this is what we try to achieve here. So on the window it says beautiful things for everyone, because that's what we want. Change is inevitable. All areas in London change, all areas in the world change. It has to happen, but it doesn't have to be for only one slice of the pie. It drives me absolutely insane that people open new places and then kick out people who've lived there for generations of people being turned away from their local pub, the local restaurant, because they probably can't afford it, because suddenly a loaf of bread costs £8. I mean, what the fuck is that about? Who is that for? I understand if you're going through some like really weird middle class process and crisis, and you're really worried about your grain, and that's fine, but you still need to make bread that people can eat and that they can afford, because otherwise who the hell are you talking to? Do you know what I mean? So here we really, really try to make price points for people that everybody in the community can afford, and be really, really welcoming, because I think that change is inevitable. It must be for everybody. I just think it's incumbent upon people who open business to think about everybody and think beyond the money that they're going to make, because communities are dying, communities are fractured, and this is important. It's going to affect you, even if you think it's not going to affect you. It fucking will, when your local school closes down, or there's no library to take your kid to, or there's no swimming pool because they've turned it into a block of flats. Yes. A block of shit flats that cost too much money. I mean, I literally would, if I could myself go round with some sort of flamethrower and just burn them all to the ground, I would do it tomorrow. I would not sleep for 2 weeks because they were all gone, because it's ethnic cleansing, it's community cleansing. What the fuck? Where are we all supposed to live? Who are all these people with £2 million to buy some shit flat made out of Lego? Yeah. Who wants to buy that? Who is idiotic enough to buy that? Where do they come from, and why are there so many of them? These are my questions, Paul. You've got questions, I got questions, yeah? I really resent people being shoved out and marginalised and pushed out to the edges, and we must fight it. And I think people like me opening places need to do it for everybody.